It's the Mustang Insider Show. Now, here's Chris Sylvester, the voice of the Mustangs.
What's up, Cal Poly fans? Welcome to another edition of Mustang Insider. We're talking all things Cal Poly athletics. This raucous crowd at Mustang Memorial Field at Spanos Stadium behind us. We can only hope we see something like this a couple of times this week as UC Davis comes to town in men's soccer and football. Can we just call it Davis Hate Week? Come on. The Aggies, of course, are the Mustangs' golden horseshoe rivals on the gridiron, but there's a nice rivalry brewing in men's soccer as well, as Cal Poly will try and exercise its demons from the Big West tournament last year and upend UC Davis to open the Big West season, a match that'll be nationally televised Wednesday night on ESPNU. And don't you want to show off the Central Coast and Cal Poly how it should be and get this type of crowd in there for the ESPNU game on Wednesday, and then again for the Horseshoe Battle on Saturday, and then again for the Blue-Green Rivalry game later in the month of October. We're really excited about what's coming with Cal Poly Athletics as the volleyball team continues to roll. Bernardo Silva doing great things in his first year leading women's soccer. And, of course, our guest today, Oige Kennedy, and the reigning Big West men's soccer regular season champs will be joining us here in just a moment. As always, we'd like to remind you that Dignity Health French Hospital Medical Center makes this podcast possible. We want to get more content to you, the fans, and Dignity Health French Hospital Medical Center is to thank. To learn more, visit dignityhealth.org/French Hospital to support the Mustangs and Cal Poly Athletics. Our conversation with Oige Kennedy starts now. Coach, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us. This is your third year leading this program. Big West Coach of the Year last season, Big West regular season champs. And as you open up this new Big West campaign, can't help but feel like this team is maybe finding its stride, this 2025 squad, just kind of looking at the results from the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we wanted to test ourselves early on. We took some tough road trips. You know, we went and played in Colorado, and which are, you know, it's a tough environment when you're at altitude at 7,000 feet and playing against a Denver team that were in the Final Four last year. So we really wanted to push ourselves and test ourselves, and I think we've done that. You know, we played San Diego State, who won the WAC conference last year. So it was good tests on the road, all kind of prepping towards being in the best position for this guys to be experienced and ready to start conference, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. The Big West season begins on Wednesday. We touched on it. Nationally televised game, 7 p.m. Mustang Memorial Field at Spanos Stadium. We'll dive more into that specific matchup momentarily. But I got to ask you, man, I mean, as you take over this program 2 years ago, it was in a precarious spot, obviously. Had never won a Big West title in the regular season history of Cal Poly men's soccer. You're able to accomplish that with your staff and your guys in year two. What's this build been like? Like, when you got the job, did you think that it was possible year two to be a conference champion?
You know, I've had some good experiences first year. My first year as a head coach, we actually won a national championship. So had impacts quickly where we've been. I think the quicker the impact comes when you get a group of student athletes that really buy into each other and really buy into having accountability towards a standard. And I think that's what these guys have done. And I think that's where we've seen the program skyrocket. You know, I think the thing that's always interesting is the results on the field are what we see as kind of the outcome of a process. But, you know, not only have the guys done really well on the field, but off the field, the GPA is higher than it's been. The community service stuff, the response we've seen has been amazing. And so there's a lot of great indicators as to all the hard work the guys have done. And I think it really is a group of people that are committed to doing something at the highest possible level that they can do together. And I think that's what makes it unique. And that's why we've had the impact that we've had so quickly. And, you know, I think the first season, getting postseason play was important to give the guys some pride and some kind of buy into what we were doing. And then last year, obviously, to win the conference is a great achievement. And, you know, this year, as we start to defend the conference, you know, again, the minimum goal has to be postseason play. And then we want to try and see if we can't push a little bit further and get ourselves, you know, onto that national stage.
And you have played some nationally ranked competition. The 20th ranked San Francisco had a draw against that program earlier this month. St. Mary's the draw, but since then we talked about the record-setting 8-goal performance you had against Utah Tech at home a couple of weeks ago, the win over San Diego State on the road, and then the draw down at Santa Barbara over the weekend. It's always interesting that Santa Barbara match, the initial one at least, won't count towards the conference
Yep.
standings, but you get a taste of what the Big West is going to be like this season. So as you start to kind of focus on conference competition, what does the conference look like to you from the outside?
Yeah, it's I've gotten to be a part of lots of different conferences, and the one thing about the Big West is I think it's very unique and it's so tight every year, and every team is capable of getting a result against whether it's on the road or at home against a team maybe that they weren't fancied to go into. So it always remains really tight. We saw that last year as to how tight it came down to the very end, the very last game of the season, nearly the last couple of minutes for us to score and win the conference. So I think it speaks volumes of how tough this conference is to win because of the tightness of it. You go to Santa Barbara, we play in front of 8,000 people. That's an environment that, a lot of college soccer players would love to play in, and we get to do it twice. So I think it prepares us well. And the conference play is, we go into another rival game basically playing Davis, who, I think Cal Poly and Davis are similar institutions in some ways, very much kind of like for like, and I think we've always had that rivalry, and obviously they've gotten the best of us the last 2 years in a row to end our season. So I know our guys are excited to get back at it and compete against them again. And I think it's easy to look at where people's results are as you come into conference, but I think because of the nature of the Big West and the teams want to challenge themselves before conference play starts, I think you're really starting over. And I think there's a lot of focus that will go into, these conference games maybe versus some of the non-conference games.
I kind of proposed this at the top of the show before we brought you in. Can we just make it Davis Hate Week, like on campus? Like I know you said that there's that great, big agriculture school up there.
Yeah,
I know Cal Poly is too, but we've got them in football as well. We've got them
yeah,
in American football too.
yeah,
So I mean, two big games at Spanos
yeah.
this week against UC Davis. To have this game on national TV says something because there aren't a lot of nationally televised Division One men's soccer games throughout the course of a season. And
Yeah.
for this one to get picked up, what does this say about the Big West? What does this say about your program?
I think it just shows that there's an interest there to look more on the West Coast, and there's some great programs out here. And I think, our kind of makeup of our division is very East Coast heavy, and you don't have as many teams on the West Coast. So I think it's a great opportunity to showcase West Coast soccer. I think, you've got the defending conference champion against the defending tournament champion. So I think it's going to be a really fun game. I think they've got a really good team. And again, you look at the results. I really wouldn't pay too much attention to them because I think it all kind of starts over, and I think they'll be raring to go and have probably had their focus on this first game because of how their non-conference schedule has gone. So, I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's like we said, it's not only the agricultural part. I think you kind of Cal Poly and Davis are very much college towns, I think, as well, and they have that kind of similarity. And I think there's a lot of pride in each school's institution, and I think that's one of the things that kind of makes us that rival. And I know that whenever we get a result against them, it's a pretty fun deal, and I'm sure they feel the same way about us.
Not to mention the mascots. You got Mustangs, you got Aggies. I'll say this, Musty, a light brown horse. You see it often. The Aggies mascot, I've never seen a blue horse before. So
No, well, except at the Denver airport, which I don't know if that's a good thing
yeah,
or not.
and you guys have seen that this
We
year.
have. We just saw. That's why. Yeah, we got to see that and got to experience Denver and Colorado Springs, which was a fun trip. And again, with those trips, what's good is the guys get to be around each other, and you get to spend a little extra time in a different environment, which was fun. We went and checked out the Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs, which was a fun little deal. So no, it's all part of being a student athlete and being part of a program.
I think that Denver airport horse is a Bronco, so I think we're safe on
Yeah,
that end
yeah, we
because
are. Yeah.
the football team, they're talking with the Ogie Kennedy as Cal Poly men's soccer gets ready to lift the lid off the Big West slate. We mentioned that we'd love a big crowd in there just to kind of show what Cal Poly soccer is all about, just to show that, hey, this is a mid-major brand necessarily, but when you look at the grand scheme of the rivalry that is the blue-green rivalry, there is no better college soccer rivalry in the country. And I want to ask you about the reigning Big West Freshman of the Year, Quinn Mahoney, who again leads you guys with 10 points, 4 goals, 2 assists this year. He's kind of been involved in a lot of the success that you've had each of the last 2 seasons. What's it been like to have him on your side, and how much have you seen him grow since he first got to campus?
Yeah, look, I mean, Quinn was really unfortunate. He faced some adversity when he first got here with injuries, and he's gone on from strength to strength since he's gotten healthy, and he's been a big part of what we do. And I think you look at the stats, and he comes up and he shows up in there. But I'm really proud of all the hard work he does that doesn't necessarily get talked about. He's a really hard-working forward that defends from the front, and it's not the thing that people champion a lot, but for our style of play and how we want to press from the front, Quinn's a really important part of that. And we saw that this weekend. He got through a ton of work pressing the Santa Barbara defenders and had some great attacking moments, and really links the play fantastically well. So we're very fortunate to have a player like Quinn, and I think he's very team orientated. Sometimes forwards are a little bit selfish. I think he's a bit more team orientated and wants the group to be successful. So I really enjoy getting to work with him.
And you've got the reigning goalkeeper of the year back. Nicky is your guy once again. Your
Yep.
thoughts? Your thoughts on his play so far this year, and
Yeah,
what he needs to do here in the conference.
look, I think he was an absolute standout for us last year, and I think, again, had some adversity in his first experiences, and he's conquered those, and he's gone from strength to strength, and I think now he wears an armband for us. He's a captain now. He's a leader. He's someone that we want to champion in our group and our environment, not just because of his performances on the field, but how he carries himself. He's a real role model for people in terms of how hard he works. And so we really enjoy what he's been doing. I think he's been a big part. A lot of our success last year was based off of our nature to defend and the accountability we take on that side of the ball. And Nicky's a big part of that. And again, this weekend came up with two big saves against Santa Barbara to keep the clean sheet. And you had Nicky with Parker Owens and Nico, and now our freshman Tanner Casey on the back line. We've got some really great defenders. So it's a really strong core unit.
And when you look at UC Davis, and you mentioned the matchup, it's you guys, the regular season champ from last year. It's hard not to think that maybe some of your returners from last season didn't have this circled on the calendar the day it came out, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's just the type of competitors that you
yeah,
have on your side. But when you look at the body of work, and Davis has played a very tough schedule too,
yeah.
but still looking for their first win. Is there something you look to maybe take advantage of, let's say early in a match, to kind of put a team down that might be reeling a little bit like this Davis squad?
Well, I think they're a good team, and the longer you leave good teams around, the longer they can find a way of getting into a game. And I think we have a mindset that we want at Spanos Stadium when we play at home and how we start a game, and we want to have that energy and that intensity. And so we have to approach the game with that. And I think they've got a really probably one of the top forwards in the conference, and they've got some really key pieces. So it's going to be a real battle, and I think every time we've played them since I've been here, the games have been really, really tight. Obviously it took penalty kicks to separate us last year. So I imagine it's going to be another tight affair. And, I think we have to go out with the mindset of making Spanos a fortress. That's what helped us have success last year. And that's where we have to start on Wednesday night.
Well, and it's the beginning of a very tough week for you guys, and I know you're not going to look by Davis by any means, but UC Irvine is playing as well as anybody on the West Coast right now, nationally ranked
Yeah.
program. You got to go down there as well. So the Big West proves to be a really, really solid conference for another season. As far as newcomers on this year's team, maybe some fans that haven't had a chance to check out a game in person, but might be getting a little more invested here at the start of conference play. Who are some new guys that Cal Poly fans should be on the lookout for Wednesday night against Davis?
Yeah, look, I think, we have a freshman in Tanner Casey who's already scored 3 goals in his first 4 college games, which is pretty impressive. A center back that joins us from down south, and I think he's done really well. We also picked up Nalu Mack, who did the unthinkable and been transferred in from Santa Barbara to Cal Poly, which is very unheard of. And he obviously played in the game this weekend against his former teammates and did great. But he's been a really good impact. He's got, great leadership. He's got a lot of experience. We've been really enjoying him. And, then Jack Civitz up top, who's had a lot of assists this year for us, came in from Santa Clara, and he's done really, really well. And so, there's a lot of guys that are also taking up more of a role this year because of the fact that they're healthy. So, Rylan Feruzanum, who we didn't have last year because of injury, has been great. Sean McTague has been on fire with scoring some unbelievable goals in the last couple of games. And both of those guys missed all of last season through injury. So they feel like new players to us because we didn't have them last year, and their impact has been really fantastic as well.
Got to ask you, since you're from Ireland, had a little football there yesterday for the first time ever. What was that
Yeah.
like to check out?
Well, my parents were telling me that there was probably nobody at any of our games because there was so many Americans in Dublin. But no, it was, Croke Park is a historic stadium, and it's probably the first time it's ever been used for a different sport, really. So it was a unique deal. I think there's actually a lot of NFL fans in Europe and in Ireland, and I think they really enjoyed the experience. I thought you were going to ask me about the Ryder Cup, though.
Yeah, well, okay, all right. Well, yeah, have your moment, man.
Yeah, well, I think Rory had his moment, right? And so did Shane. So it was pretty cool to watch that a little bit. I'm not an avid golfer, but I do enjoy the rivalry of that. And, obviously the some of the fan behavior kind of reminded me a little bit of a Santa Barbara Cal Poly game, but, it was fun to see. And no, I thought, look, high level sport, it's really entertaining. And, there was some great stuff this weekend, including our game against Santa Barbara.
Hey, last thing for you. Carter Henderson introduced as the new athletic director. Did you work with him at all up at Stanford?
Yeah, we overlapped a little bit, I just kind of at the tail end of my time at Stanford, kind of a little bit. And, we're really excited to see Carter come in and what his vision is going to be for the athletic department. I think, having gotten to meet with him and talk with him, super energetic, very positive. I think has some lofty goals for the athletic department and Cal Poly as a whole. So super excited for the impact that he can have. And obviously, in the same time, want to say thank you to Don because he was the person that hired me and gave me the opportunity here as long as with President Armstrong. So, we'll be saying goodbye to Don, but, excited for what Carter can bring. And, beyond Stanford, had an amazing experience at UW and Jacksonville. So I think going to have a great impact here on the athletic department.
Ogie Kennedy, reigning Big West Coach of the Year. The conference slate opens Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, ESPNU. But we'd love to see you there, Mustang Memorial Field at Spanos Stadium, as the Aggies and the Mustangs get together and horse around. Coach, really appreciate your time. Best of luck Wednesday, and safe travels down to Orange County. Hope you come back with a big win over the Eaters.
We appreciate it. Let's pack that stadium Wednesday night for TV.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, bye-bye.
This has been the Mustang Insider Show. The preceding has been a Learfield's presentation on the Cal Poly Sports Network.